honestly can't believe I've never played Chrono Trigger until now. You always hear about how it was a genre-defining game, often topping the lists of so many people their all-time favorite game. Plus you got the guy who did the Dragon Ball Z adding the Dragon Ball Z thing again with the Dragon Ball Z designs, so I think that's pretty neat. Yeah, everyone often says this is their favorite game ever, and it's weird because then I don't actually see that many people nowadays talking about it, telling you to play it. They would rather say, oh, go play Final Fantasy 6 or 7 or Sonic loses his wedding rings or some other game. I mean, maybe it's okay, like, look, I enjoy peanut butter, but I ain't screaming about how you gotta try it before the other butters. But I feel more people should be screaming about this game because it feels to me after playing it for the first time now that it's one of the perfect RPGs for getting someone into the genre, while having some of that old school feel. You know the one, where the pixel art says more than you'll ever need to know. But I wasn't totally unaware of this game's existence till now. I did actually experience it way back due to a thing called emulation. Cease and desist. I mean, bro, I didn't grow up with the NES. Chrono Trigger released in 1995, I would have been like a baby, and I can tell you, no baby is gonna handle this thing. But I did have a Nintendo DS, and since games are so expensive in Australia, and the DS had so many games releasing, and after buying the second brain training game for $90, you kinda think, damn, I need money! Or the next best thing, buying a $90 device that lets you play emulated games on your physical console. Which I did, and let me tell you, the amount of games I got to experience purely because I was able to try them out for free. It was so surreal. I was downloading everything left, right, and center, even that amazing Call of Duty game. Mission failed. But I tried Chrono Trigger, not really knowing anything about it. I mean, I love DBZ, I love the art style, and yeah, that's the art style. Okay, sure, I'll try it out. Then I was actually really enjoying it, running around the fair, until I got to the first time gate, and the game crashed. Look, my life wasn't always roses and peanut butter emulating things. So yeah, I just kind of moved on to other games and only recently learned about Chrono Trigger's immense status in the RPG space, and I needed to play the game for myself. And that is what I'll get to in this video. The charming game with a delightful cast of characters, a crazy twist on turn-based combat with multiple endings. I will talk about that all in this video I will call Chrono Trigger Truly is a Masterpiece Retrospective Review Critique Video Analysis.
He has such a way with words.
Also, I'll chuck in something about the Chinese bootleg Chrono Trigger. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. I promise I'll get to it by the end. So Chrono Trigger is actually not a grand story with some genre-defining plot or anything like that. Well, if you look at what games were doing in 1995, it probably was genre-defining back then. But you have seen the things it does now in other games inspired by it, as it follows Chrono living in a time of peace, 1,000 years of it in fact, and so they host this event called the Millennium Festival. I said millennium, not millennials! And his childhood friend Luca, an inventor, creates a matter transporter which ends up transporting the princess to the time before, and now you gotta go in and save her. And the game involves you jumping around a lot of time periods, saving each place to fix the future, with the eventual plot being you to save the world from destruction, alongside a slew of uniquely designed characters. I mean, one is a frog who speaks the ye olde English. I was the king's favorite food. Now, Chrono Trigger's development is the kind where you look at it on paper and realize you're witnessing one of the greatest development teams out there. It had 3 directors, Akihiko Matsui, Takashi Tokita, and Yoshinori Kitase, you know, the director of Final Fantasy VII, often seen as the most popular JRPG ever. Then it was even supervised by Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, and Yuji Horii, the creator of Dragon Quest, who is currently working for Dragon Quest IX on the Nintendo DS. Bro, what is going on with these Wikipedias? While all the character designs were made by Akira Toriyama. Yes, that one. I mean, it should have been pretty obvious, right? But you even had other designers like Tetsuya Nomura and Tetsuya Takahashi, you know, the creator of the Xenoblade games. I mean, that's probably a JRPG fan's dream team if you don't hate Kingdom Hearts. And yes, so in 1995 on the Super Nintendo, Chrono Trigger released onto the world as a game that revolutionized the industry. I mean, you look at the games in 1995, yeah, I would take this any day of the week. But it wasn't just a beautiful presentation, as the game is jam-packed with a unique battle system and so much side content that relates to the multiple endings, which was a big thing around then. And after playing this, I kid you not, they weren't kidding with those multiple endings. I mean, they thought of everything. Every little thing the player might do or not do to account for a different ending, which makes this probably the most replayable game on the Super Nintendo. Which is why I gotta say something about the different versions of this game. Because Square, oh buddy, when they have gold on their hands, they'll use it to make NFTs and kill the environment. But when they're not doing that, they will milk a game that isn't Final Fantasy 13 and port it to every console possible, phone included.
Did you guys not have phones? Yeah.
And why for this video I had the toughest time trying to pick which version to review. Sure, I could have picked the DS one, I'm sure it'll work now all those years later, but the two screens makes it kinda hard to record footage for YouTube when you gotta record both windows. Well, what about the official Steam release? Yeah, again, I don't know, there's something about the pixel art in this presentation, it didn't stand out to me. It felt kinda sterile. But I think as this is my first ever SNES game, I should go back and play it how it was originally made. Yes, the first release in the West with the original localization, because if you didn't know, this game was originally localized in 1 month. Yeah, buddy had to translate all this text in 1 month! That's seriously amazing to say you achieved that. Because yeah, there's actually a big difference in releases with the new versions using a more literal translation. You know, they didn't localize thing for an American 90s. You know the type. Easiest difference is that one character speaks ye olde English, yet in the modern release, they don't. I mean, you might as well throw out all the lines then. Yeah, people care so much for the original translation, you can even patch it in the Steam version. But you also get other differences like more dungeons in the newer ones, with more side quests, although I hear they aren't that worth it. But you get some extra cutscenes, like actual anime cutscenes for certain scenes. And bro, I swear this is just a lost episode of Dragon Ball Z. So it really is up to you with your preference on which version you want to get. But I wanted to experience the original, because I do love me some 90s anime cringe. Also, there's a PlayStation port, which I hear has all the improvements, but for whatever reason, it runs slow. Yeah, PlayStation being the slowest console. If only they had an SSD, huh? But what exactly is Chrono Trigger? Well, it's not what you call when you trigger an old person. But the game follows you, the protagonist, which you can rename, who has to travel through time to save someone and eventually learn that the world will end in the future unless we travel around the time periods and save each one to save that future. And the gameplay revolves around the world map where you can walk around till you enter landmarks and then you can talk to the numerous NPCs about the current time period to get a feel of the place before dungeons and have you fighting enemies in this active time-based combat. Now the ATV thing is not new if you're familiar with Square Enix games, they really love using it in their future ones, and it functions the same here, where it's turn-based, but you have to wait for your action meter to fill up before you can use that turn. It's not, oh, I'll politely wait for my next move. Oh, you went? Oh, now I can go? You can't do anything till this bar is filled, and you can do physical attacks or these techs, which are like super-duper physical attacks, that you can learn as you level up with these tech points. Essentially, defeating monsters gives you experience and tech points, or you can then use magic, which you unlock at a later point in the game, and there is type weaknesses like the dinosaur enemies being weak to lightning. And with the techs you can do double or triple, meaning it's a combined move with your teammates, but they often aren't the best because you would have to wait for both your ATBs to fill up, and it might actually be better to do separate attacks. And those are all the decisions you make on the fly because it's, you know, it's active, it's moving. But you can at the start pick wait mode, which makes it more like the other turn-based games, but I feel when a game is designed with this system in mind, you probably should try to use that since the gameplay will accommodate for it. And it doesn't feel repetitive as there are so many enemy types, each area having often 20 or more uniquely designed enemies, and they'll have their own gimmicks. Bosses too have their own styles, which actively change up how you think of a strategy, as you gotta swap out your main 3 party ahead of time to think of what to do, as they each have their own benefits. Plus you can pick some armor which might block a boss's attack, and so on. They really got so much out of this quite simple system. It's actually astounding how deep it goes. However, it's not that difficult, as in if you fight every enemy you see, even skipping a couple, your level is pretty accurate to the bosses. You're not like required to grind out in the woods to keep in line, which I truly appreciate. I was actually scared going into these old games with a reputation of being hard as, because you know, gamers were tough back in the good old days. But I think the fact that it had multiple endings which you can only see on New Game Plus was the thing that added replayability. They didn't need to go and make the game overtly difficult to keep players coming back to grind for it. This was more than enough to make players want to come back. Well, with that out of the way, let's get into the actual game, which follows Chrono, who you can rename, but I don't know, it's such a big game status, I wanted to keep the default names for once. Also, surprised at how much customization there was, all the settings, changing the battle speed, even the type of text box you wanted to use. Bro, they were destroying Pokemon years before they even existed! And you wake up with your mother blinding you at 8 AM. As it's the Millennium Festival, 1,000 years of peace, your mum just dances along. And they tell you that you can walk around while reading text. You're not stuck still, which is so annoying in so many RPGs, where you gotta be like, yes, okay, I'll deal with your problem. You can stop gluing my feet to the ground. But here you can even press Y to move the box to the top or bottom of the screen. And I haven't modded the game. This is the original SNES version. Man, they were doing all this in 1995? Meanwhile, I was here like... So we head to Lena Square, where things are happening. Wow, what a fair. Hey, at least this stuff is free entry. You see what they're doing to Disneyland? And we accidentally bump into a girl named Marl, who asked us to show her around. Alright, but I ain't buying you anything. If I want to drink some soda, I'ma drink some soda, okay? And so at the fair, you can actually participate in these events for points. Like fight a robot, drink the cans, guess the soldier, pledge, and that's a stupid name.
What did you say, punk?
Eat this lunch just sitting here. And wait for Mal to buy some candy. Bro, hurry up, I gotta go to the bathroom after all the sodas. And finally you meet your friend Luca, her time machine ready to show off, as we see that it's a matter transporter.
It only transports matter.
And Mal is like, let me try. However, she was wearing this pendant, which reacts to the machine and opens a time portal, sending her back in time. And we go pick it up and jump in after her, with Luca saying she'll find a way to help us get out. And after fighting some enemies, we learn that we are 400 years in the past, where people don't even believe that they are celebrating peace. You're crazy, we're still fighting Magus' army. And through a forest, we fight monsters who drop items. You can get them from that or find them in chests. And these can be healing items, armor, or these things called tabs. No, they aren't how much you owe the bartender. They are permanent stat boosts. As we enter Guardia Castle, where we are stopped by soldiers until the Queen Lena saves us, because it turns out it's actually Marl, as the real queen went missing and the search party out there found Marl instead, since they strangely look so familiar. And this place is nice, got beds to heal, disgruntled workers.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
However, Marl has the energy of someone who drinks lean, and she gets warped out. What are you saying? The queen is dead and you're joking at a time like this? However, Luca appears saying she made a gate key, somehow, that can open time portals to travel through time. Luca says that Marl is a princess in our time period, and the death of a missing ancestor means that Marl never existed, hence the Thanos snap. And so us and Luca have to find the real queen to prove to everyone that she's not dead, and Luca here provides the firepower. Literally. Until we find this church. Hey there, nun, just popping in for a quick prayer? Well, that's not what I thought nuns were for. So the queen is captured somewhere here, as we meet someone who helps us out. Oh my god. A frog! And he speaks the ye old king's queen Lena's English. And he's here to save the queen, so the three of you head in fighting all manner of enemies called mystics. And now you get access to dual text where you can combine moves, like Luca shoots fire, Chrono can spin. So, fire spin? And moves like Cyclone that you want to use because they can hit grouped up enemies, as enemies do like to wander around on the battlefield, so you can wait for them to move together before attacking. Or some abilities that you can use to time it and wipe them out in one go. Frog also has a heal on him, which is very vital, but you can also use items in battle to heal up. However, remember, these still use up your turn, and you don't got that many, okay? So you find here that mystics disguise themselves as humans to infiltrate the palace, while here we steal this item called a Naga et Bromide. Man, this must be a crazy strong item. And you say that these mystics all follow the leader called Magus. So after a save point, which are these glowing dealios, we have a mini puzzle where you have to pull this switch here to open the door on the north, while also not being able to go back up this slide, which reminds me that it's actually pretty cool with how the enemies aren't random encounters. It allowed the devs to place the enemies how they wanted in the rooms, but they also made unique animation intros for how you fight them, like these guys on the stair here, or in this area we got this ogre sleeping until this buddy wakes him up. So we reach the end and find the queen and chancellor. However, he's not really him, it's Yakra, a mystic who really loves to do this move.
I love that sound.
He has 900 health, but it's easy. Oh, yeah, you really gotta watch it because he moves close to you, he will then counterattack if you attack, so there is a little strategy, and since you don't have good team heals, you will have to use a lot of items. But after we win, we save Queen Line, who invites us to the castle. Oh, but don't forget to open this chest for a surprise item! The real Chancellor, you rapscallion, you! Bro, chill. Okay, you can prosecute them later. So back at the castle, Frog feels bad for not being able to protect the queen and walks off, where he farewells us. No, I wanted the frogman to stay. But Marl appears since the queen was found, and she confesses she's Princess Nadia from our time. Oh, that's sorted. Let's go home as you head back to the time gate you fell in. However, you might want to do a little farming here with this bush, as re-entering respawns this little guy who keeps dropping shelters, which are items that you can use at save points, and they fully heal you up and your magic bar, which frankly makes them the single best item in the game, because there are plenty of save points, so having a lot of them helps you progress the long dungeons. So run wild, little guy, I'm gonna tickle your shelters. Also, I will note every NPC has new dialogue depending on the situation, like now all of them are happy the queen is back. And Marl fights with us now, where she uses the bow while Luca uses the gun, and using the gate key you can open the gate we came in from, although we still don't know why these gates even appeared in the first place. So returning back, Luca heads home while we go to escort Marl to the palace. However, you can visit Luca at her home where you meet her parents, with her mother chair-ridden since she lost the use of her legs. Gee, I wonder how that happened. Anywho.
But chicken, Marge.
I know.
So yeah, there is a town in the south with a really rich mayor who even his whole family hates him because he's so greedy. But as you return to the palace, wait, what? Arrested? I was just saving the princess! Bro, I just want to drink my sody pop, don't execute me! And turns out the things you did in the fair determine how guilty you are, with the Chancellor here really wanting you to go to jail. And yes, even eating this guy's lunch earlier was a bad idea. It's funny as the weirdest things you get called guilty for, like if you try to drag Marl away from picking candy, that was a guilty verdict, because what you're meant to do is just stand still and let her pick.
Democracy simply doesn't work.
And we get sent to jail. The amount of guilty verdicts we received only impacts how much ethers we get waiting for us in jail, as regardless, you will head here for the crime of trying to kidnap the princess. And now, this is where we get the first little bit of freedom in our choices, because you're meant to sit here in jail for 3 days to get execution, and you actually can just sit there and wait out those full 3 days. It's 1 minute in our time, where Luca will then come in to save you. But I didn't know that, so I tricked the guards and busted my way out here, fighting the entire prison security. And it was a lot of enemies, including these bozos, who I had to wait for them to peek out to attack, otherwise you do no damage. And it's a long way going through, where you can optionally free this guy Fritz, and even sneak up on the guards to knock them out and get tonics, the healing items. Luca then meets up with you halfway as you then both continue to escape, and you're home free! Oh, Chancellor, what now? Oh, come on, a tank here! So this boss has multiple points to hit, but you should probably attack the head to stop it healing the other parts, fire whirl a bit to attack it all, and it shouldn't be too bad, as the Chancellor will then try to fix the tank, but... So we go up to the castle with the guards, just trying to push me around. Hey, come on, hey, stop that. And you get surrounded, but Marl fights her father, the king, and runs off with us, as we get chased into the forest and escape into a time gate. And this gate takes us to Bangor Dome, which doesn't really have that much here, because this is the year 2300, where, oh great, the world is dead. People have clearly given up, so you gotta go through, watch out for the rats that steal your items, and these slime things that can only be hit by magic. Eventually you reach the Aris Dome, where you find more people saying things about how they can't even reach their food storage below due to killer robots, and you can heal up in this pod here, which you will find in every area. Either you got these inns that cost money to heal, or these free ones that are contextual to that time period, as well as a shopkeeper where you can buy weapons, armor, or items. Well, I guess also got to clear out the robots where you go through and have to catch this rat, which will then tell you that there's a boss ahead, this Guardian. But luckily now with Marl in the group, she has a group healing with a dual tech with you at the cost of both of your attacks. Also, I didn't like how when you're in this menu to use the techs, you don't actually know when both bars are being filled since it blocks out the screen, meaning you're just stuck here waiting, and those bars also pause when an enemy attacks. You could just be spamming A until the action button is ready. Afterwards, you then find another rat who tells you the password is L plus R plus A. How oddly specific. Also, how the heck are these rats so damn smart? Well, we use the code on the machine here to activate the bridge, and on the machine inside, Luca learns that the nearest time gate is the Proto-Dome in the east, as it then plays a video of the Day of Lavos, which shows us that in the year 1999, this thing rises from the ground and begins the end of the world. So now it's our mission to stop this from happening. Gee, the plot just ramps up right here. Also, there's this weird sealed door and all these chests you found before that you will want to remember the placements for later on. And yes, Marl, we truly are in the future. So yeah, you also found some guy who died here, but who cares? He gives us a seed. Here you go, leader. Here's a seed. I'm sure it'll help you fix up the world, right? He in turn gives us a bike key, which lets us ride a jet bike, but for some reason, this guy Johnny always wants to race us every time we use it. And it's this minigame with a completely new type of animation, and you have to race him every time you want to cross over this area, and you have to win, otherwise you just get sent back, where you got 3 boosts and you got to swerve around him. They even give you an item if you achieve 1.5k points, but it's so hard, because this guy doesn't care about dinging his ride. Well, before the next dome, you can clear out the sewer access, which has it alerting enemies if you touch the rubbish here, and they trick you with fake save points. Oh, that's low. And you go around fighting this weird crocodile. And there's an item called Rage Band here, which is really good, that allows you to counter attack whenever you're hit. 50% of the time, before unlocking the bridge, which makes it a shortcut for later. It's good to do this area now to get the experience here, since later you'll be too overpowered for that experience to even matter, as we head to Proto-Dome, where we meet a robot. His name? Robo. I love him. He thanks us for repairing him and says we gotta go to the factory to power open the door here to go back to the gate. So there we go. And in the factory, Robo helps us through with all these gizmos and conveyor belts and moving cranes with codes you find, where you learn that the final room code is Zaby. And when you enter the code, you press X, A, B, Y. Zaby. Get it? You get it? However, the alarm sounds and the factory goes haywire as Robo's old buddies come out and beat him up for defecting and malfunctioning for working with humans. So you and Marl gotta take them all on. Because, oh yeah, at the door you had to leave one person behind, either Marl or Luca, to open the door the minute you turn the power on in the factory. So yeah, you can only use 2 people in this fight, making sure you use that cyclone and group heal, okay? And we save Robo, with Luca putting him back together, and Robo now wants to help us save the planet. As we head into the time gate, which takes us to... oh, no, not Ohio! No, I don't want to go back there! This is the end of time, a hub for where all the gates connect, as now when you enter a gate, you end up here where you can heal and shut up this weirdo, who gives you hints on what to do next, and then jump to any time period you visited from before. But it still places you back from when you found the time gate, like in the castle area, you still gotta run through all the way here every time you go here, and every time you gotta fight the same monsters in the same spawn, which gets really tiring in the mid-game, as you cannot run from battle. But here you also find Specchio. God, this is horrifying. And it teaches you magic if you can run laps around the place. Sure, buddy. You put the gun down and I'll listen, okay? And so Chrono learns lightning magic, Luca fire, Marl ice, and Robo is shadow, which is anything that can't use magic. And you fight Specchio with magic only. Yeah, it's a tough time. Now, the interesting thing about this is that it opens up a huge thing with the endings here, all to do with this bucket. Because yes, if you use the gate in the bucket, you can go all the way to Lavos. Yep, the final boss. Right here, right now, with your current level. Oh yeah, sure, if you're a pro gamer, you can and win. More accurately, you're meant to try this on New Game Plus. But this allows you to see so many endings because at different chapters, you can come here to fight Lavos and get a new ending. So yeah, early game, you're not going to try it now because it's meant for New Game Plus, which is only after you've seen the main ending, one version of them, as they made so many extra ones with this bucket. I'll show some of them off near the end, but yeah, just avoid the bucket because it's not a pretty sight. And yeah, if you die, you get a bad ending. Anyway, here is where you learn that you can't have more than 3 people running around and the other members just sit here bored. Because at any point you can just press Y to swap party members and they will join up with you, but yeah, whenever they're not on the team, they will sit here on the bench. And it's kind of important, the party thing I'll get to later. So you use the gate which takes us to 1000 AD, which is 400 years ahead of the Frog's time, where the Mystics hold a grudge against humans for defeating them in the war years ago. And so these bozos get mad we came out of the closet. Man, times were different in 1000 AD, but they aren't so bad with this guy telling us to be careful. And yeah, all the Mystics in town don't want anything to do with us, and the only human on this continent is this weird guy called Melchior. Dude rocking some kind of vibe. So yeah, apparently mages summoned Lavos and created him to wreak war upon the humans. Well, that doesn't explain 1999, but okay. So you head into Hecarim Cave and a lot of enemies here can only be defeated by magic, which is Robo's time to shine, as his attack, Laser Spin, is a multi-hit magic attack that honestly made me use him the most. It's just so good. And continuing on, you find this boss who only can take magic hits, and you shouldn't attack when he says, "Go ahead. Try and attack me." Ah, the classic bait. But I won't fall for it. And then you assume that mages created Lavos in the Middle Ages, 600 AD, so you should go there and try to stop him, which means back to the time gate. Also, you notice how Miles says this? Well, yeah, that's because Luca is stuck in the end of time, meaning she can't come back to explain it all. Meaning, depending on who you put in your party, at any point they will say specific things for the story since you never talk. Meaning, yes, they had to write lines for every character and assume you might use them at this point. I couldn't believe it. There's so much dialogue. How did you do this in 1 month? So yeah, we head back to our time and remember where we saved that Fritz guy. Well, he's here and he's happy we saved him, so we get 10 mid ethers. Oh, mid means good here, you zoomer. And he sells good items. However, if he didn't save him, his dad then runs the shop with weaker items. You can also talk to your mom to introduce her to why you're traveling with a princess and a robot. I mean, it might be easier to just admit you were caught reading a racy magazine. And trust me, we have all been there, right? Anyway, we go to 600 AD through the end of time, where the townspeople talk about a legendary hero. As we hit the Zenin Bridge where the soldiers are starving and need some food. Also, the king was injured fighting mages, so we head to the castle's kitchen and find that the chef is mad. But when we leave, he runs up to us to give us some jerky to feed the soldiers. And buddy, that jerky must be the most amazing thing ever since it actually helps them. As we fight the monsters on the bridge, and Ozzy, a high-up general, appears, turning the human corpses into skeletons. And then he summons an abomination of deceased warriors called Zombor. Now you got 2 halves to fight and your magic attacks might heal one while hurting the other, so you want to focus on the head and then it shouldn't be too bad. And now you can proceed to the towns below in the south, where this house has a locked cabinet and this guy is like, "Hey, you got the Naga Ed Bromide." The what? Oh, that thing I got earlier. You want that? Oh, okay, sure. I was gonna sell it for more soda. Oh, okay, sure, take it. And as a reward, he gives us the thing hidden in his drawer. And it's a magic tab. It just raises your magic by 1. Stingy SOB. Anyway, you can find more people to talk around in the towns here, but we head to the cursed woods, and climbing down we find Frog, who is living here but says he is no hero. He can't help us and asks us to leave. No, I must help him regain his confidence. And what turns out to be a long back and forth to get this damn frog a strong sword, the Masamune. And so into Denadoro Mountains, where you find Tata, the legendary hero, bit on the short side. And he runs up scared by these goblins. And buddy, I would be scared too. There's so many goblins here, it never ends. Oh, okay. And eventually you find a cave with Masa and Mune. Oh, you're not a sword. And And they say, hey, you want that sword? Well, we need to test you in a fight, which is not too bad. You just target the one on the left since it will move on once you defeat one of them, and they both combine to form Masamune. The boss, still not the sword. He's super strong, and whenever he stores the wind energy, make sure you use Chrono's slash attack to stop him. And for winning, you get the broken sword and head back to the hero Tata's house, who says he's sorry for claiming to be a hero. He just found this hero medal that the frog dropped and used it to pretend to be one. So we head back to the frog and give him the broken hilt, which it turns out was made by Melchior. Oh yeah, that guy. And so you go all the way back to the canyon gate. He was fighting the same monsters. Go to 1000 AD and find Melchior, asking him to repair the sword. He's like, nah, first I need some dreamstone. You know, the redstone that hasn't existed for millions of years. Oh great, so you want me to go how far back? Well, I can't say no to a man with that much. So we go there from the hub and you fall into the past where there are lots of reptile dinos whose sprites are really cool. I gotta hand it to the game, as even though they have these limitations with the console, the team was able to make such detailed environments. As characters got such unique poses that could account for many situations that make them move about in this way that you can cover all these emotions, since they had to tell the story without any voice acting. My favorite ones being the Chancellor and Miles' yell. But after a while, this is all too much for us until we're saved by Ayla. She's interesting. And I'm blown away again by this dialogue. She has a whole scene about whether or not you have Robo here, because if you had Luca, the whole thing would have been different. They were out here, Baldur's gating it up before sassy goth cars were even a thing. So she takes us to the village where you can talk to people here and heal up with the sweet water. This time period, situational free healing. But no time for that because we gotta party! And eventually you got to compete against Ayla in an eating competition by mashing A. And oh my god, this is insane mashing. Is the SNES controller like easier to mash than an Xbox one? Because oh boy!
My head is cramping!
And so you wake up after partying hard. You got the Dreamstone, yay! But your gate key is gone, no! Ayla is like, hey, what the heck? Must be those blasted reptiles. And puts herself on your team. Meaning you only get to pick one other person. So sorry, Robo-Man, I need my group healing. And as such, the team's total IQ drops as we replace a robot with another blonde. Look, it's a joke, not because of the hair color, but because she's a cave person. I'm sorry, I don't think I can trust her to handle my taxes. But you know what I can trust them with? Breakdancing, oh my god! Before that, you can go hunting. Because yeah, these people here will trade you for some rare items like bird feathers. Yeah, it's valuable to cavemen, okay? For these really strong armors that can resist fire attacks, which you know the dinos use. So you go up to the hunting ground and fight the monsters here, including this thing. And then trade them over here for said armor. Also on the world map, if you leave the controller down, the characters will have idle sprites even here. It's so much attention to detail. Look at Chrono, the little goober. So in the forest maze where it turns out this guy called Kino stole our things because he thought Ayla liked us and not him, but he's an idiot. And then turns out what he stole from us got stolen by the reptiles. I'm going to follow the footprints through the maze into the reptile lair where the enemies start to ramp up their attacks as these moves that can do status effects, like you can shock the dinos, which is good. For some reason the dinos didn't like electricity. I don't know, maybe I'm just saying it wiped them out. It was electricity, not the meteor. But you can also have it affect you, like with Chrono's sleepy time. And so at the end you find Azalea, the queen of the reptiles. She asks us about the key she stole from you. We say, no you. And she decides to give us some motivation. This is Nizbel, who releases electric attacks over time, but you have Ayla, who is really not skipping gym day, and she doesn't need any weapons, but she's got some insane attack power. As Ayla then gives us the gate key back and runs off, as we go back with Ayla, who will stay in this time period, as we head back into the mountains and jump to the time gate to go to the end of time. Where I should mention you can actually defeat Specchio just using magic. It'll take a little bit of time, and they will get stronger as you fight them over time when their level increases, and you do all this to get some items. So back to 1000 AD to give the Dreamstone to Melchior, which Robo helps him out to mend it, and eventually you get Masamune, the legendary sword, which you can give to Frog, and then we get his backstory where he was a guy called Glenn, who was learning under the swordsman Cirrus, and they both went to fight mages, but Cirrus died, and Glenn instead got turned into a frog human thing. So now Frog joins our team with Masamune, and you'll want to equip him with the hero medal, which boosts the crit of that weapon. Also remember to go back to Specchio to unlock the magic for Frog, because it won't be unlocked until you do this, and you got Frog's magic power being water. I mean, what else can a frog use? Oh, wait a minute. You also now get triple attacks, which require all 3 characters at once, which I feel is incredibly situational, since I'd rather use 3 separate attacks or heal than locked into one big one. So we head to fight Magus, and Frog gets another flashback to how weak he was till Cirrus showed up and knocked some sense into him.
Marshmallow!
I know.
And so we reach Magus's castle. And man, this place is creepy, with NPCs saying the weirdest things, clones of our party saying the weirdest things. And you wander around and the music here is really good, with this rising tone and someone crying out in pain. The music surprisingly has been so good so far, with a lot of catchy tunes that suit the mood and time periods you're from. It's funny though, because the composer, I think it's their best work, as weirdly they went on to do the Xenoblade 2 music, and 2 is the only Xenoblade game I don't actually like the music of from, so it's kind of weird to suddenly fall in love with the songs here. I mean, man, when I hear the Frogs theme, anyway, you find Ozzy, who says to defeat all 100 beasts in the castle with the 2 leaders, Slash and Flea, and yes, they're all rock references. Well, you should go left to fight Slash to get a sword first. Also, I found it amusing as I realized why I was seeing randomly health bars on the enemies before, and then I wasn't suddenly now. It's due to Luca's starting equipment, the Sight Scope, which shows the enemy's health bar. However, if you don't have that equipped, it's like an old school game, you just gotta keep mashing away until you eventually win. I feel it's better though to equip something else, since most enemies don't have that much health and it can be over in a few good turns. And the fight itself is tough because it's got 2 phases, with and without his sword, and they attack very quick, meaning if you don't have the team heals like I did here, it was a bit challenging, so yeah, I had to swap Robo out for Mile just for the heals because Frog takes up a slot. Slash then drops the sword, which you can use, and then on the right you fight Flea. Now I will mention that you did have this bat following you around the whole dungeon, as then when you get to this fight on the right, it's not actually Flea, but then they appear from the bat. And Flea, despite bragging about how strong they are, it was way easier a fight than Slash's one. So you run through the middle, then fighting hordes of enemies chasing after Ozzy, who instead of fighting you, would rather spring traps like Home Alone, like this conveyor belt with dropping blades, these falling balls that won't attack you if you stand still, and a room with pitfalls that have these fake save points that teleport you back up. It's kind of annoying with these fake save points, as they don't get a confirmation before you use them, so as soon as you touch it, you just teleport. However, these enemies with question marks give you a lot of experience. Well, we finally reach Ozzy. And you can't really hit him because, you know, the ice. But what you're meant to do is attack the supports, which will open the floor underneath and defeat him. And 2 save points appear, and like I said, the left one teleports you automatically, so make sure you go to the right to save first. As now you gotta face Magus himself, and he's got the whole Castlevania vampire vibe going, even having 6,666 health. He will routinely switch between magic barriers, and you can only hit him when that type of magic is up, and nothing else will work. Frog's Masamune also will lower his magical defense with a normal attack. However, when you win, Magus says he only summoned Lavos here, he didn't create it, as Lavos then awakens and you all get sucked into a time gate where... Bro, is that really an Evangelion reference?
Let me sleep a little more.
So you wake up back at Ayla's. Also funny, I think, I don't know if it's a glitch, but when you swap the party out here, everyone goes to sleep, then wakes back up. And now we unlock Lightning 2, as your magic, you can get stronger versions of it, with the second one doing a multi-hit. And now we can do some things here. First, we can go back to Miles' castle, where the closet goblins let me eat their food to heal. I see, I told you they weren't so bad. And you head back home to show your mother your new friend. And you go to the castle to see a scene with Marl and the Chancellor, who tells her that the king killed her mother, and Marl and the dad have a fight with him storming off. Royalty, am I right? But turns out if you have somehow more of that amazing jerky, yeah, the magic army raising one, you could give it to the king here and he would get even more mad. Just for like 1 or 2 lines of dialogue. Bro, I know it's just salt, but you don't have to be that mad. Just be warned, you will want that jerky for later, so hold on to it for now. And you gotta help out Ayla, who seems like the reptiles have burnt the North Village, so you gotta go and take down the reptiles once and for all. However, they are over these mountains and you gotta need some wings to fly there. Like actual pterodactyls. Okay. And you can fly them around the world map, pretty much landing anywhere you want. Now inside the castle, you use Ayla again, who, like I said, is very strong. And you gotta make your way through this old castle, which makes me wonder, how did reptiles even build this castle while the humans, you know, with opposable thumbs were still in huts? And also there's this cool new enemy type, the volcano, which if you attack it hurts its friends, but then if they attack it, it hurts you. You can also free some cavemen here and Kino, who is trapped until Ayla goes Super Saiyan to free him. There's also this room with warp tiles that you have to trial and error if you want to be able to get all the items, and there are some good ones like this armor. Eventually you fight Nizbel too, who is pretty similar to the first. He thinks it's the same boss but a reskin, but don't tell anyone, okay? Eventually you reach the throne room with Azayla, who wants this to be the final battle to see who will win, the reptiles or the humans. Well, I mean, we're still here, so we know how that goes. And she goes back and summons the Black Tyranno, which is such a cool sprite design. Now first you're going to want to defeat Azalea to take care of her before the dino, who will block all physical attacks. Also make sure you got the ruby vest on to protect her from the fire damage. And now the strategy is to not attack until he starts a countdown and his defense is lowered, and then you can go ham. Also, I really gotta hand it to the attack animations, as a lot of the time you see the moves of every character, they have a unique sprite, but also there's not too many sprites were made. Like a lot of moves just reuse how the sprite moves in a very unique way, like the text combine the two animations of the characters. But then bam, out of nowhere, this random 3D ass rock attack. So Azayla dies and she says to remember that we fought till the end, as a meteor crashes into Earth. And Ayla names it Lavos. La meaning fire, Vos meaning big, and they all get wiped out in the blast, with us flying above it to avoid the damage. And then we land to see that Lavos has already buried itself underground, and the energy it gives off is what's creating those time gates. So yes, Lavos is a being from outer space. And so we enter this new gate, which takes us to a new area, 12,000 BC. And it's a weird time because everything is covered in snow, and I guess the meteor caused a full ice age. However, you find a teleporter to the skies. Oh, that's where you're all hiding. So this is the city of Enhasa, where they talk about how advanced everything is. They all use magic and serve a queen zeal. I'll say, sorry, no, I didn't mean to set your book on fire. Or on wind. Or, okay, there has to be a secret to this. And yep, turning them on in order opens a bookshelf where you fight these things and get a lot of experience and tabs.
I don't like it here.
Then there's this kid with a cat who just goes up to you. Damn, one of you will die soon. A Merry Christmas to you, you weirdo. So these people's power stems from how they actually are using the Mammon machine to drain Lavos and use its power to learn all this magic, which is kinda worrying. As you head to the other city and see this giant flying ship called the Blackbird, guided by this guy called Dalton, who accuses us of being the evil people this prophet predicted that would arrive here. So in the next town you learn that there are actually people below living there called Earthbound. Bro, was that a JRPG reference? Who don't learn magic and have to suffer in the cold. Now, apart from the weirdos here, you should actually talk to this girl who's holding a plant and tell her you like plants for her to secretly plant it.
That's a surprise tool that can help us later.
Also, I don't know why, but you can scratch the news back here.
A little lower.
And so this place had these three gurus, Melchior, hey, that name sounds familiar, opposed this sucking Lavos plan and was banished, while Balthazar created the Blackbird ship in this ocean palace and underwater palace, while Gaspar was working on something called the Chrono Trigger. Hey, that sounds familiar. They all three are missing, as the queen doesn't really care, since she now follows a new guru, this hooded prophet who appeared out of nowhere and is the one guiding her. Now the queen has these two kids, a daughter Sharla and a son Janice with the cat. Sharla gives Janice a pendant, which looks familiar too. And Janice says the queen has been acting weird for a while now. Also, hands off the cat, it only follows him around. Buddy, I got my own can. I'm good here. So since our pendant is the same as hers, we can charge it at the Mammon machine to enter the sealed door to meet the queen. Meaning, yes, you can now use this pendant on all those sealed doors and chests from before. However, before we can explain who we are, the prophet says that we are the evildoers he warned us about and summons a golem to attack, and you don't actually have to win the fight, as Dalton will then seal you in a force field. However, Charlotte goes to free us since she thinks we can save all those banished gurus, and she says we can find Melchior at the Mountain of Woe, but the prophet sees this and says he'll only spare us if Charlotte cooperates. And to show us how we landed in this time period, we lead him to the gate and he orders Charlotte to seal it shut after he chucks us in, which he does so meaning we have no way to enter this time period again. So Luca works out that in the future time there was this sealed door and that could be a way back into this time period. However, before that, we got a lot of things we could do. Well, firstly, I realized that the meteor, when it crash landed, it removed all of the sweet water that healed us up. No! But now you can open the chests and doors throughout time, which is tedious since you gotta keep going through time periods, and to get the actual best equipment, what you wanna do is talk to the chest in 600 AD. Then not open it, go to 1000 AD, open it, which then becomes the upgraded version of that armor. Then go back in time to get the base set. Because these armors actually absorb elemental attacks and heal you, meaning if you know what type the boss will do ahead of time, you are pretty much invincible. So in the future here, you talk to the New, which lets you through the sealed door, and you see Balthazar's messages as he actually died being stuck here, but was still researching on Lavos till the end. And he made his final invention, a time machine called Epoch. Well, they call it that. I'm calling it Bar. And so you have an ability to time travel to any time period without a gate and fly around, which is so convenient, finally! As you head to 12,000 BC to find the Earthbound people who live utterly depressing lives, and you gotta fight some beasts to get to the Mountain of Woe, where here, you got these rock things that give you so much experience, but you can only hit them with physical attacks, and they run away after a while. Think of them like those hands from the Persona games. So we reach the top, but the guru isn't here. Instead, a Giga Gaia, where you gotta destroy the hands first before the head. And yes, once again, Ayla is very OP. Where you win and free Melchior from the ice, who was like, "Do I know you?" Maybe not yet. And says how the queen is only different because the more they absorb from Lavos, the more like it she becomes. And while this is happening because the cage broke, the mountain then crumbles into the sea. So Melchior says that we have to stop the queen letting the Mammon machine get close to the center of the earth to not awaken Lavos, while Charlotte and Janice appear. She says she won't use the Mammon machine and that we should stop the queen, but Dalton appears and kidnaps her. So Melchior gives us the ruby knife, a weapon made of dreamstone that can destroy the machine. And so we head to the palace, but turns out everyone is partying in the ocean palace, you know, closer to the center of the earth, while Dalton here got stuck with guard duty. So we fight him and he runs off with a gate to the ocean palace, and we follow him. This place is really cool with all these statues and walled imagery as you head down further and further as we find them at the machine, where the queen is forcing Charlotte to use it as only she can control it. However, we appear saying hi and chuck the knife into the machine, which causes it to turn into Masamune. Yeah, this is all in the past, remember? And this is how the sword was created. But it summons Lavos and we gotta fight! Well, I'm sure after all our grinding and we actually die. But you're meant to, as the prophet appears saying he has been waiting for this, revealing himself to be Magus.
Bet you didn't see that one coming.
Magus declares he will stop Lavos for all the destruction it's caused. The queen appears and knocks down Magus and brags about how Lavos will give her eternal life. And before Lavos can kill us, Chrono wakes up and takes the full hit, causing his body to fully disintegrate. Yes. The main character dies. Yeah, I mean, back then it was shocking. I know how JRPGs work these days. He will come back, right? Right? Major says Lavos cannot be beaten as Charlotte uses her powers to save our friends, where they then ask the burning question. Well, somebody had to care about the ship. As Lavos awakens, it causes the Empire of Zeal to fall to the land and causes a tidal wave, killing the Earthbound. As we see the last remaining humans alive on this island, with a few Earthbound and Zeal having to work together. This old man then tells us Melchior was sucked into a portal trying to save Janice, but doesn't know where they are now. And all is even worse as Dalton appears, declaring himself the new ruler of this land, and arrests us while taking over Bar. And now begins our big section where you cannot change your party, you have lost all your equipment, items and money, as you got a prison break, and you gotta find all the pieces again with a lot of puzzles. It's crazy how they even added this feature where you crawl into the vents and you can press A to look down at any point. Well, we eventually get our items and find ourselves on top of the Blackbird, where we gotta fight the most toughest foe yet! A golem who's afraid of heights so he doesn't attack. Kinda feel bad for this, but Dalton sees us. Yeah, I wish I had the power to just stop the music like that. And flies Bar to stop us, yet we jump on and stop him, taking over it and accidentally firing the weapons to destroy the Blackbird. And now we can use Bar to travel through time and we'll try to find a way to revive Chrono. As the group head to the North Cape where we find Mages, who shows us a flashback of the three gurus and what time period they ended up in. Also how Gaspar wound up in the end of time. He's that old man we've been talking to over there. Because the three gurus had saw Lavos and it sent them back, including Janice, who was sent back to Ozzy's time, who had raised him, meaning Janice is the child version of Mages, who only wanted revenge on Lavos for what he's done. That's kind of why he was summoning him back then, you know, to fight him. And now you have the choice of having him join you by fighting or spearing him. And I legit thought, okay, maybe you have to fight him into submission. Nah. It kills him. No, I don't want that. I needed to see him save his sister still. So I retry and don't fight, meaning he joins the team. And it's interesting to note that if you have Frog on the team, he will want to challenge him one-on-one. And this is a big deal with the endings because depending on what you do here affects the ending and whether or not Magus appears. And he's like a really good magic user knowing all the elements, and he gives us Magus' amulet, which is what Charlotte gave to him as a kid. And now we head back to the end of time. And while this is happening, the Queen raises the Ocean Temple out into the sky, becoming the Black Omen, which is now appearing in all time periods. And to prove he's Magus, in case you're still suspicious of the vampire, head to this commons area and see the cat will suddenly follow him. As you remember, that cat only follows Janice. So we're back at Gaspar. He will give us the Chrono Trigger, an egg that will allow us a chance to alter the timeline, meaning we have a chance to save Chrono. And in the future, Balthazar says we gotta head to Death's Peak, where reviving someone is possible, but we also need a clone of Chrono, and no, we can't just steal one design from Dragon Ball Z. So we gotta go all the way back to the present time and that guy with the guessing game, who somehow has a puppet of Chrono. I don't know why. And after following an immensely difficult game where you gotta press the buttons to copy the moves. Strangely not the first time this has happened on the channel. Well, you win the Chrono Doll, and so you climb Death's Peak, which is so much snow. Like, oh my god, it's so much! And man, like, I get it, it's snow, but it's not ice. Why is it slippery here? And you gotta fight all these mini lava spawns, which you should only attack the head, as the body will launch this counter-attack needle on you. But we reach the top where we can use the egg, and it takes us back to the moment before Chrono's death, and we swap his body with the doll, saving his life. Wow. Buddy, you're alive! What was it like being dead?
And I went to the future, and then I went to the past, and then I was nowhere, but now I'm back.
Oh boy, that was a lot of exposition because, yeah, it just kind of came out of nowhere with this town in the sky. This entire kingdom you suddenly learn about, all these new villains, it's just non-stop and kind of doesn't give you any time to process it. I maybe felt you could have had more time in the Sky Village, like some quests to make you care more and see the difference between them and the Earthbound before things go nuts, as it really felt incredibly fast-paced with these events just happening, and you don't really want to stop it since you probably want your main character back as soon as possible. And it really felt so random you suddenly learn about the Chrono Trigger, the thing the game is named after. Oh, okay, it can revive people. Oh, okay, revive them. Cool. Thanks, old man. And thus you finally have everything you need to defeat the final boss. If you didn't do it the other million times with the bucket. But this is Chrono Trigger, right? There's actually a lot more side quests you can do to get even better armor, and I was so pumped and ready, but I decided to test out the cheat codes. What? Don't give me that look. The ice shelf broke me. Blame the ice thing. So a lot of these side quests involve you learning about more of the party members, except Ayla. She's a cave woman. What more do you want to know?
That's good enough for me.
So Lucas involves a lot of time traveling as you're meant to find a special stone from the future, which is in the Sun Palace all the way over here. And you can press select on the world map to see where you are. And what do you know? The world isn't flat. Glad there's no 1995. They knew what was happening. Inside the place you fight this fire boss, which you really need some fire absorbing armor before. And it only takes damage when you attack the correct fireball. And they will spin fast after a few turns, so you can't really keep track of it. Honestly, this is one of the hardest bosses in the game. Okay, maybe that was actually why I turned the cheat codes on. Afterwards, you find that beast and turns into a moonstone, and this stone needs 65 million years of sunlight to charge it back up. So back to the dino time and placing it here, and then we go back to the future. But the stone is missing! And so you go back to 1000 AD and see it's missing here still, so someone from this time period stole it. And in the bottom left of the map, well, what do you know? That greedy mayor's house is glowing! And to solve this puzzle, you gotta do some crazy time traveling, where you buy that jerky from this shop, since you're rich enough for it now, go back to 600 AD in this house before it becomes the mayor's house, and give it to this lady here. Make sure you give it to her for free. She will be so wowed by your generosity and promise to raise the kids to be generous. Then you go forward to 1000 AD, and now the mayor, a descendant of hers, is super generous. His kids love him, his wife wishes he wasn't as generous, and he just gives you the stone because he says he just found it somewhere. Does this all explain how a generous mayor could stay in power even in the year 1000 AD? Well, I don't think the SNES cartridge could handle these questions, so let's move on. And you put the stone back and then go to the future, and it becomes the Sun Stone. And at Luca's house, she uses it to make the Wonder Shot, the ultimate weapon for her, but more importantly, her dad will give you the Sun Shades, which you can then upgrade later. Next is Frog's quest, where the ghost of Sirius is haunting this castle in 1000 AD, and you have to travel back and forth through time, clearing out monsters and then hiring villagers to fix the place, so in the future you can travel through it when the floorboards are fixed, and a frog meets Sirius and upgrade his Masamune, which it turns back into those spirits who are then like... mucho indeed. Then major side quest involves you actually finishing off Ozzy because I guess falling in the ice wasn't enough to kill him, and you find his castle in 600 AD where it's got a few people left and his henchmen. The whole thing is probably the most comedic in the game as Ozzy tries to lure you in these traps. And summon monsters on these moving platforms, which doesn't work as intended. Before you fight all three of them, and I gotta mention Ayla actually has this move called Charm, which you can use on nearly every enemy in the game to get special items. And charming Ozzy's pants off,
It's best not to think about it.
which are one of the strongest helmets.
It's best not to think about it.
So it's highly recommended to do all that here. And once defeated, you fight Ozzy alone, and not in the usual way. And yeah, now the Mystics no longer despise humans in your time period. Now then, we got Fiona's side quest, which involves that lady, you told to plant the trees earlier, as it starts this quest with Fiona in the desert, where she wants to rebuild the forest here, but can't due to all the monsters. And so you head in to destroy them, a similar boss to one you fought earlier. Also, I got a shout out to OBS for recording in MKV format, because my whole computer just froze and the footage is still perfect. Okay. Why is this SNES so powerful? A modern computer can't handle it. And with that done, Fiona begins to plant trees, but fears it will take more than her lifetime to do it all. So Robo volunteers to help, and look at him go. And you skip forward in time to see it done. Fiona has a shrine to honor her, and Robo is there, still functional. And you fix him in this forest area, which looks really stunning at night. Wow, the graphics are so cool. Also, Frog really needs to learn how to sleep like an actual frog. As the group discussed that maybe it was a greater entity that wanted to see them to go through all this gate stuff, not just levels. But then you actually get to play as Luca, who gets her own time gate, showing her backstory as a kid, where she hated machines and her mother went near her dad's machine and it crushed her legs. Because no one entered the safe word, which was her name, Lara. And you can enter that now to save her, meaning then in the future timeline she can walk again. Then Robo's side quest in the future where he was built as you enter the factory with him and have to solve so many puzzles here involving these switches, charging Robo with electricity to lead it into open doors, and make robots follow you to eventually find his ex-girlfriend, who wants Robo to return to hating humans, but turns out she was brainwashed by the mother brain here, who is this really cool hologram, and it's like the reptiles thing of wanting to wipe out all humans, and you really get one of the most gruesome scenes in the whole game. But as we saw before, they ain't gonna win against us mammals or cats. or amphibians. And Marl's quest is the most important one, where we fix up with her dad, being mad, as you enter 600 AD and find that there's this guy called Toma, who is looking for the rainbow shell, and is like, okay, take this soda, don't drink it, but when I'm dead, pour it on my grave. So we go to 1000 AD and of course he's dead. So we pour it on his grave and his ghost appears to tell us where the rainbow shell is. Bro, how strong was that soda to raise the dead? And inside it looks like Azalea's castle with reptiles and even the same dino boss before finding the rainbow shell, but it's so damn heavy we can't lift it. So we go back to the castle and tell the king here to keep it safe for us, make it a valuable treasure in the castle's keep, so we then can safely use it in the year 1000. And as we head there, it seems like the chancellor has gone rogue, as he claims the king stole the rainbow shell and it should be killed, even paying off the jury for this. Marl, however, won't accept this. And we're going to find the shell before the trial ends as we go into the basement and fight our way through, finding it, meaning he didn't steal anything. So Marl bursts through the courtroom window, showing everyone a piece of the shell, proving her father didn't steal anything, as this was all an evil plan by the Chancellor, who reveals himself to be Yakra, a descendant of the first one, wanting revenge. But we win where I use a real Dragon Ball Z move, that's probably the best one we got now, and pick up his key to free the real Chancellor, and now Marl and her dad make amends, and Melchior is like,
I've come up with a new recipe.
and makes the prism dress, prism specs, and a rainbow sword Chrono's best weapon. Which means you can finally have enough things done to fight Lavos in the bucket. Well, there's still the Black Omen in the sky. Because if you want to beat the game properly and actually unlock New Game Plus, you gotta do it this way. Where in 12,000 BC you unlock the Black Omen and have to fight your way through with Zeal taunting you with these mutants. And man, I really love the Lovecraftian vibe this place has. It just feels so foreboding and eerie with all these crazy strong enemies. And then you reach and fight Zeal until she summons the Mammon Machine to fight you with. Afterwards, she then appears on top of the Black Omen, saying how she will live forever and humanity is doomed. And she turns into this form with these hands, and you should just focus on the head. After defeating her, she calls Lavos to swallow the Black Omen and rise out to attack us. And the Lavos fight is very interesting in that each phase mimics a boss that you've already fought. So how, with the timer with the Tyranno, you're gonna do that again. And eventually, you destroy the Eye of Lavos. And so inside the shell, you enter and fight its true form for the final fight against its core. And we learned that the alien's goal was to use the genetic code of every being to become and evolve the ultimate form. I don't know, where have I heard that before?
I went to college!
And this fight is long as we gotta destroy all these parts, focusing on the left first, as the right bit has the most health in the game with 30,000 hit points. But we win as Lavos disappears and we wake back up in our bed. Oh, don't tell me it was all a dream. Oh. You're not my mommy! As the soldier says the king has paused their execution, I honestly forgot we broke out of jail and were still kind of wanted, and sends us to the castle where the king is like, I doubted you still, but Luca here used the gate key to bring all the people back we helped over time to prove our innocence, and finally we are free! As we get a parade in our honor where our party disbands to their own time periods, Ayla marrying Kino, Frog getting a kiss from Marl, it doesn't turn him back, and May just goes to find Sharla. Oh yeah, I forgot about her! They never revealed what happened to her, and I just don't leave it like that! However, just when we are going to dismantle the machine, our dumb cat jumps into the portal, and our mum chases after it as the gate closes. Oh no. So we gotta go into bar once more to find her, and that ends Chrono Trigger. Also amusing to me as someone who's never owned a SNES, I didn't know the game doesn't just end and go back to the title screen, it just stays here, looping the song until you have to reset the console, and then it shows you New Game Plus, where you can do now a couple of things, mostly to get the other endings, which often change up the scene we saw completely. There are around 14 in total, and I won't go through them all as this video is long as it is, but here are some of my favorites. So one ending is where you crash Bar into Lavos, destroying the shell, meaning you skip a whole phase of the fight, and the ending changes because now how are you gonna find your mother? And if you fight Magus with Frog here in the ending, you will see Frog turn back into the human Glenn. And you can also get a whole ending if you defeat Lavos without resurrecting Chrono, it's just the gang, where they all depart from the end of time, and you still get a parade with Marl, but it's kind of awkward with only her here. Then you got an ending where you defeat Lavos at the Ocean Palace, which you get rewarded for beating the hardest ending, and see the dev room where you meet the sprite forms of the dev team, and it just goes on and on. I mean, I guess it's cool they gave every single dev something to say. Then if you defeat Lavos right after Yakra, you will see a film of the wedding of Queen Line to Frog, as now everyone in the future is a descendant of a half human, half frog. Alright, getting freaky. And if you do it before Azalea, you will see the dinos won the battle, as now every human in the present is a dinosaur. Also, the DS got an exclusive ending showing what happens to Sharla. See, I knew they forgot about her originally. So yeah, they had a lot of fun with these endings because they know you'll only get them after doing it in a New Game Plus, meaning you've already seen the main true ending before. So bro, come on, everyone being a dinosaur would be so cool. Well, but I do love how at least all the main characters got their time to say goodbye in the ending, because yeah, I think it would be dumb if they all just stayed in your time period. Maybe Robo could have, because there's nothing for him in the future. Wait, would his future change because now Luca could just create him now? Whatever, it's why we love these time travel stories. You have to overlook the nitty-gritty details to be able to understand the plot, because time travel is super messy. It will often work in unpredictable ways, like I still can't believe the jerky we get to the great-great-grandmother made this guy suddenly generous. How powerful is this sacred jerky? So yes, that's all there is to Chrono Trigger, but unlike a dad going to the store, I will keep my promise and talk about one more thing, the Chinese bootleg Chrono Trigger. Yeah, so to play this game, I had to, of course, emulate, and I won't share where out of fear of. But it's a popular site, I never had any issues, and I saw this ROM, Chrono Trigger C, and I thought, oh, okay, the C stands for Chrono, not China. I mean, the first problem, I should have known that it was a NES ROM and it wouldn't work on my SNES, but I thought, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Chrono Trigger was a NES game, what do I know? So I got a NES emulator and opened it up, and oh my. So yeah, apparently there's this company that's made a few of these, and it's legit a recreation of Chrono Trigger, not a port, in this modern style with a random dude having his mother wake him up. You know, it could just be an alternate timeline from when we gave the jerky in the original game. And man, there's just something odd about hearing this theme song in a lower bit console. So you shuffle your way downstairs, and yeah, I don't know what's happening in this dialogue, but it turns out, of course, there is a translation patch for it too. But I think it's pretty straightforward if it's gonna follow Chrono Trigger exactly. You know, you got the Millennium Festival. Oh, that's not a festival. In fact, it looks a lot like Pokemon. I mean, would Chrono even need a PC? And what looks like a temple, we find that they put the most effort into the time machine sprite. And here it follows the plot. You know, a gate opens, we jump through, and you get attacked by monsters. Also the void. Oh my god, if you thought the attack bar was slow in the original game, you haven't seen nothing! And so we wander forward. And is that the drill? From Pokemon?
That's it, I'm out of here.
I can finally see why Chrono Trigger has that status of being the greatest RPG of all time. The amount of things it had in a game that released in 1995, allowing so much replayability, while being accessible as an RPG to get people into the genre, with a story that takes you to so many locations, with an actual likable cast of characters, though none of these things now you would find new or interesting. I mean, you probably have seen a lot more games do more interesting takes on this formula, however, I can still appreciate that this was 1995, dude. Like, you were eating good if this was your Christmas game back then. It really was a dream team of devs that got together to make a one-off game, because on numerous occasions they have stated they don't want to make a sequel and would rather make something new together. Although I do have to wonder what's this Chrono Cross I've been hearing about. But yeah, Chrono Trigger does everything so well. The music, the gameplay being so simple, yet allowing for so much customization with what you use in battle, who you use, which in fact changes the dialogue you get on story missions, adding even more replayability if you want to replay here and see what the other two characters are saying during the story events. I still think some things aren't perfect, like when you go into the menus of the tech attacks, you can't see when the teammate's attack gauge is up so you know when to do the attack, or how a lot of the gates have you refighting enemies off in a time when you're so over leveled. It's just a mild annoyance because you cannot run from battles. But then on the other hand, I appreciate that it's not random encounters, which are one of my biggest pet peeves in games. And you know, it got me thinking, would Square even remake this game? I mean, they have to have noticed how well remakes do, and if Final Fantasy VII is considered the best Final Fantasy of all time by them, so wouldn't they want to then try to remake their best RPG out there according to fans? And I would think it could be a full remake with voiced cutscenes, but that would mean they would have to voice every single one of these variations. But that might be too daunting of a task. But man, it would be so cool to see these characters with a 3D model, or they could just do a modern pixel art style, you know, the recent Square games that might make more people happy. But it's kind of baffling how they have not tried any of that, and how not many people I see online pushing people to actively try out this game. Because I really do think it's a very accessible RPG. It's not that difficult, it has an easy to follow plot, and could get new fans to RPGs if they want to try older style games. And yeah, that's Chrono Trigger. I want to thank you everyone for sticking to the end. My review of this game, experiencing it for the almost first time. And if you're new here, I would appreciate a like on the video and subscribe if you want to see some more long reviews from me. And until then, I shall see you on the next video.